Hello, and welcome back to Life Forces Podcast. I am your host, Bianca Giulioni, your astrologer, human design person extraordinaire, here to guide you to living a life that's energized, where you feel like you're fulfilling your purpose and you just feel like everything is flowing. And flow is the theme of today's episode. It's the last part of my 3-part series on my new one-on-one coaching container called Reclaim, Activate, Flow. And if you're just jumping in, you can go back to the Reclaim episode and the Activate episode to get into the vibe of what Reclaim, Activate, Flow is all about. And as we begin this episode, I really want to take a moment to just tap into what this idea of flowing with our energy can physically feel like. What does that feel like to you? Whether you're walking or sitting at home or whatever, if you can take a little pause so that you can focus and visualize, that'd be cool, because we don't want any accidents. Like if you're driving or something, maybe not the best time to close your eyes and visualize, or you can just keep them open, whatever you want. So I invite you to just close your eyes with me, slow down your breath, feel the surface beneath you or whatever is around you. And I want you to envision a day where it just feels like everything is flowing together nicely. One thing flows into another, and you're feeling really good and energized. So when you wake up in the morning, how do you wake up? Is it without an alarm? Is it with your favorite song waking you up? Is it with your pet or someone waking you up? Is it early? Is it later? How are you feeling? I'm guessing you're feeling energized because, if it's a good ideal day, you're probably feeling energized. What's the first thing you do in this ideal day? Do you get up and make yourself a tea or a coffee? Do you meditate right away? Do you stretch? What is that? What is that feels really good and nourishing to you? Do you feel clarity? Do you feel sure about how the day's going to go? Or even if you're not exactly sure how the day's going to go, are you excited for the possibilities of life? What would that be like? And as you move through your day, whether you're working or whether it's a day off, do you have lots of time for yourself? Are you hanging out with people that really get you and that bring good energy into your life? Do you feel free? Do you feel abundant? Are you not worrying about money? Are you not worrying about work? Are you just in the moment? What are the emotions and what are the feelings and sensations that you associate with this amazing day where everything is flowing well? Just tap into that. Think about the words or colors or shapes or whatever it is that's associated with that. And when you're ready, if your eyes are closed, you can open them or just come back to earth a little more, whatever you want. I just wanted to open this episode with something a little bit different so that we can connect with ourselves and with this idea of flow and what flow means to us. So to get the wheels turning a little more, I'm going to share some definitions or ideas about flow. So one that I read that I really liked, and I think it was even on Wikipedia or something, is the melting together of action and consciousness, which I love because it suggests this idea of presence and being really deliberate and mindful of whatever it is we're doing, right? It's not just action, it's not just the doing, and it's not just like consciousness, dreaming about it. It's bringing both of those together. And what's interesting is when I was kind of looking at how my work is evolving and how I want to work with clients, I was playing around with the phrase conscious productivity, which I think someone else has already been using and trademarking. So don't want to get involved in that. It's fine. And the other thing is I don't love the word productivity because, to say what I want to help people with is conscious productivity, then that maybe implies that productivity is super important. And I mean, it's important, obviously, to a certain extent. We want to be productive in certain things that we do. And I do want to bring like a consciousness to that rather than it just being like mindless, go, 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 achieving for achieving's sake. I still don't think that's the right term, because as I was saying in the Activate episode in the last part of the series, it's also about doing less to accomplish more and making more space in your life rather than seeking to be productive in every single moment. Like if we don't have downtime, we're going to burn out. It's so simple, right? For me, this idea of flow and how we can experience it is about being fully immersed in the present moment, in whatever it is you're doing or experiencing. So if you're listening or watching this right now, are you also looking at something else on your phone? Are you also distracted by something, right? It's okay if you are, but what does it feel like to breathe and be aware of your breath and tap into every word that I'm saying, right? Rather than having the focus scattered. And for me, this is not just about being in flow at work so you can be a better worker and make more money for yourself or whatever, but it can also be about experiencing flow in other moments of our lives. Like I've had amazing days where I don't necessarily have plans, but one thing goes into another. I'm walking and I see someone I haven't seen in a while, and then we end up doing something and blah, blah, blah. Who knows where the day takes us, right? Or you meet people unexpectedly and it's really cool and it feels synchronistic. Another thing for me is I really believe flow and experiencing it is this feeling of time expanding. So for example, when I'm really engaged with what I'm doing, whatever it is, it's like I'm not looking at the clock, I'm not checking my phone incessantly, and I have this feeling of calm that just washes over me, even if what I'm working on is a little bit challenging. Like even if I'm writing something and there's part of me that's like frustrated with it, I'm still able to dive in and tackle what's in front of me. One thing I'm gonna rattle on about all the time is this idea of floating downstream rather than swimming against the current. When we're living in integrity with exactly who we were designed to be, whether you're looking at that from an astrological perspective, a human design perspective, a soul perspective in general, whatever it is, even like biological to a certain extent, right? If we're working with all of that in a way that's harmonious, then it's so much easier to just get into the river and follow the current, right? Swimming against the current is like, I have to be like this. I need to be more like this person. Why am I not doing it right? Why am I not doing this way? Like, like doggy paddle, wasting energy, feeling exhausted, getting nowhere, right? We don't want that. Let's not do that. Another thing about flow that I think is really important, especially when we're looking at things on a day-to-day basis, which I love doing, because it's great to have these bigger visions of how we want our life to go and have these goals and ambitions and things we're moving towards. But our lives are made up of more mundane everyday moments, right? And in the everyday and in the random Wednesday, we need to find our own balance between chaos and order, right? Between total going with the flow with having some structure. And to bring some astrology in here, we can kind of look at those two ends of the spectrum from the perspective of the Virgo Pisces axis, right? Virgo and Pisces are opposite signs. Virgo is a mutable earth sign, while Pisces is a mutable water sign. And Virgo is very much about details, control, precision, and organization, whereas Pisces is about the bigger picture, imagination, and flow. And we need both of those things in our life, right? And we need to, in any given moment, decide what proportions of each that we need. And it's also about creating the containers in our life for flow. And this is going to look a little bit different for everyone. For some people, saying, okay, on Thursday, I'm not going to put anything on the calendar and I'm just going to write. That doesn't really work for me personally, but for other people, that might be great. And that might be the container that works for them. Or the container that works for someone else might be like, I'm going to work 5 days this month, or I'm going to write this many words. See what days work best for writing and just go with that. For me, I need a little more precision, and I feel like I often need smaller chunks, at least at this stage, when I'm thinking about writing. For example, I'm setting aside this time to write. I'm going to write 750 words, for example, which is an amazing website if you do any kind of writing, whether it's like journaling or you're working on something. It's a really cool website where you're in your little browser, you're writing your stuff, and once you hit 750 words, confetti comes on the screen and you get a little check mark, and it feels very great and validating. And it also like tracks your streak and stuff like that. So that's like one container that helps me get in flow, because it's like, okay, I know my goal is these 750 words right now. When I do that, I usually try to do it almost first thing in the morning. Like I do my little morning things, and then that's kind of the first main thing I do. So that's an example. Here, when we're thinking about flow, it's really important to ask yourself, where and how do you get in the zone? You know, what tends to work for you? You know, if you think back to moments recently, in the past, whatever, where you felt really tapped into something, what was that environment? And you know, did you have tools? Like what was going on that helped you get into the zone? Most of us probably want to have like uninterrupted time. I know for me, I do some of my best work. For example, like when I know my husband is going to be at work for an extended period of time and I don't have to worry, you know, even if I say like, oh, I'm going to be done by this time, just knowing that I have several hours that will 1,000% be uninterrupted, that works for me. And also, I usually prefer working alone. Sometimes, and I kind of experimented with this in the winter, like I would do co-working sessions with people, but like online. And we would just, you know, say like, hi, I'm working on this today, catch up a little, check in, and then do maybe an hour of like working with like the camera on for accountability, right? Or sometimes I really feel like I need a boost. It's maybe been a bit too much alone time and I just want to get really focused, because the thing about working from home is like, oh, let me do some dishes, let me do some laundry, right? Whereas if you're at a cafe, you can't do those household tasks, right? If other people are in a kind of focus mode, or honestly, even if they're not, I can find it easier sometimes to get in the zone. Another thing that I think is really helpful when we think about the concept of flow is to not overcomplicate things, right? We want to create space. We want to allow space, because when we allow space, first of all, it just feels better rather than like cramming everything in, rather than scheduling everything to the second. I mean, if you enjoy doing that and that works for you, cool. But I think a lot of us could use a bit more space in general, mentally, physically, whatever it is. And one way we can very easily tweak this or observe and see what happens if we change it a little bit is with things like morning routines, right? Some people have no morning routine and it works for you and it doesn't work for you. Some people have a super complicated one and it works for you and it doesn't. When I was still living in Berlin and it was pandemonium time, you know, like spring 2020, I got into this phase of like having a super long, complicated morning routine. And for a little while, it was fine. And it was maybe good for me to have some structure and stability, because I also wasn't really working at the time because I was already on unemployment from quitting my job at the end of 2019. You know, we were all a little bit more limited in the things that we could do. So I think to a certain extent, it was good for me to have that structure and just like set up my day in a great way. But after a while, it's like, okay, I do this and then I do this. And then this healer woman I was talking to suggested I try the 5 Tibetan rites. It was just like a lot. I just decided, okay, basta, we're cutting down here. That's something to consider. Like if you're starting to feel the ick about your morning routine, even if you had the best intentions for it, and even if it worked for you for a long time, maybe time to pivot a little bit. And like that can even be like, oh, I don't like how I just like get up and have a coffee right away and I'm rushing out of the house, right? Okay, so how do we make that more relaxing to you or more inspiring to you, or whatever kind of energy you want to cultivate, right? Going back to the reclaim step, when we're doing kind of this like future self visioning, what does future you, how do they want to experience their mornings or their evenings or their work days, right? And tapping into that as much as we can in our current circumstances, right? Something to think about. Another thing that really helped me that has to do with human design is learning that I have what's called passive brain. There's passive brain and active brain. And so this makes me a little more inconsistent with things. So anytime I've tried to do something for however many days in a row, it kind of just does not work as good as my intentions might be. Or it's like, okay, I do this for a week and then I really need a break, whatever it is. So learning that, and then also letting myself have some flexibility in my morning routine, for example, or whatever else it is, has felt really good to me. So learning that and kind of adapting that with the rest of your human design, with how your days normally go anyway, is super important. At this stage of the game, when we would be working together, hopefully you've already implemented some things from learning about your human design and other things and getting more aligned with your values and things like that. What kind of routines or what kind of rhythms you want to work with, especially if we're looking at, the menstrual cycle, if that's something that you have, right? How we want to fit that all in a way that feels good, in a way that's not overwhelming, but exciting to engage with. One thing you can ask yourself, even now, right? Whether or not we work together. So based on your priorities right now and what you want to focus on, how can you refine how you flow through your day? If you're focusing on improving your health, maybe we want to make sure we have time to cook our own meals. We have time to go to the grocery store and buy food, so we're not scrambling, getting something on the go that's maybe not as healthy. We're making space for movement, for exercise, maybe going for a walk in the morning, things like that. Is this a period in your life where you need more structure or actually less structure? Do you need more play? Do you need more rest? Do you need more discipline? All those things are very important to consider and can help you get more in a flow state with life in general. And another thing we look at this stage is how we can flow with life based on the current astrological transits you are experiencing. So essentially, this has to do with where the planets are right now or where the planets are moving in the near future and how they relate to your own natal chart. This is a huge part of how I work with clients, and I've been digging into this deeper and deeper, learning more and more, and it is fascinating and super helpful. Instead of oh my God, I want to work on my health and get a better job and make more money and find the love of my life. Okay, hold on a second. Let's see what significant transits you're going through astrologically and go from there and see if we can refine from there. So we actually can see the needle move on certain things rather than I want to focus on these 5 things and nothing's really happening. Nothing's really moving and shaking. So for example, when I went through my Saturn return a few years ago, for me, I experienced my Saturn return in the 12th house. So it had a lot to do with spirituality, hidden things like the subconscious, and also endings. And I definitely engaged with all of that, whether I wanted to or not, but I'm really happy that I allowed myself to focus on a lot of those things. I definitely got more into spirituality during that time. And also, I think knowing that I was going through this made it so much easier and made it so that there was less resistance coming up in me. Because if you have no idea what's happening in your Saturn return, it can feel really scary and chaotic potentially. But if you understand, oh, okay, these are the themes that might come up, these are some things that could happen, you can prepare yourself, right? To a certain extent. Life will always be a little unpredictable, obviously, but astrology can help. A huge part of flow and flowing with life in a way that feels good is not scattering your energy too much. Maybe someone like a manifesting generator can be very multitasky and can move from one thing to the next pretty easily. And that's what they need to feel good and to feel in flow. But for the rest of us, I would say it can be good to refine things a little bit. And of course, let's not forget that amazing phrase, where attention goes, energy flows, right? So if we go back to our future self, if we go back to the values that we really want to ground into, okay, so from there, what are the things we want to pay attention to? What are the things we want to cultivate? Let's remind ourselves of those honestly every day. so that we can really tap into them. And so the energy can go there. And so that we can expand in those ways that feel really amazing. So that concludes this 3-part series. This was Flow. The whole series is Reclaim, Activate, Flow, which is the name of my new one-on-one coaching container. And if you loved this chat, thanks for listening. I appreciate it. And if you want to learn more and if you want to get in on the beta round, highly recommend it, because essentially it's going to be more than 50% off of the full price when I eventually launch in a couple months. And literally the way I've priced it is like, if you kind of divide it up, because there's 6 sessions, 2 per month, the whole thing is less than I would charge for 6 sessions anyway. And you're getting all this extra stuff and resources and support. So definitely worth getting in on it now. If you want to learn more, you can go to my website, or more importantly, go to the link in the show notes description to book a free 30-minute call with me to see if it would be a good fit for you. And I also want to know what's on your mind, what you want to work on, if you've already thought about your future self and what they're looking to bring in and create. So as always, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being here. Share this with anyone you think would resonate or it could be helpful to. And as always, if you have a chance to rate and review the podcast, super duper appreciate it. It really is helpful to get the word out there. I'm wishing you an amazing day, week, and I hope that you're able to flow with life in a way that feels good to you. See you next time.